The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. And in the wake of that conference, nations came together and spoke to me about confronting Qatar over its behavior. So we had a decision to make. Do we take the easy road, or do we finally take a hard but necessary action? We have to stop the funding of terrorism. I decided, along with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, our great generals and military people, the time had come to call on Qatar to end its funding. They have to end that funding and its extremist ideology in terms of funding. I want to call on all of the nations to stop immediately supporting terrorism. Stop teaching people to kill other people. Stop filling their minds with hate and intolerance. I won't name other countries, but we are not done solving the problem, but we will solve that problem. Have no choice.
Peace, peace, and blessings, everyone. Today, we're going to go into the backbone of oil. Who pledged allegiance to the big corporation? And is Qatar a friend, an enemy, or another pawn in the game called global politics? You are here in the newsroom with Henry and the co-host, Shin Akuma JML. We here to give you a show like no other. Peace, peace, and blessing. What's up, Shin?
Hey, what's good with you, brother? You already know it's just another day in the neighborhood, and we gotta get to exposing, lifting these rocks up and letting these bugs scatter, because we gotta show what really is going on, because they're trying to be grimy and cover it up.
So this video that I played firsthand was Donald Trump 10 years ago talking about Qatar, however people pronounce it, this Middle Eastern nation. Wait, hold up, just a...
Well, this Middle Eastern nation is over here trying to play both sides of the fence and looking like.
Yes, and we got some links I just got just now. Some links coming in. I'm going to play it in a little bit. But we have Donald Trump. In his statement, he said, we need to stop funding terrorists. There's countries who funded terrorists, he didn't want to name them. If these terrorists are enemy of the United States, I'm just hoping I'll name them. Who is these countries? Who is these countries funding these terrorist organizations that is wreaking havoc around the world?
Well, we already know off the rip, one of them is definitely, they're going to say Iran. So, that's usually who they like to put the whole, all the house money on, all the chips on Iran with that one. But we know that it gets further and deeper than that, because that it's just a scapegoat tactic, because Iran is very vocal about their backing of Hamas and Hezbollah. So they want to give you the obvious answer instead of the right answer.
Yes. We heard about 9/11. Right after 9/11, everybody came out. There's supposed to be conspiracy theorists. And we find out most of the things that the so-called conspiracy theorists was talking about is actually truth. They was telling us truth years ago. And the number one sponsor of terrorists around the world is United States. Even ex-officials came out and said, our goal in the next 10 years is to take down these countries. And sure well, most of the countries that terrorist organizations, revolutions that occur in the Middle East occur to benefit United States. We
Well, that's
have
so, Henry, because to add on to what you're saying, like to add some evidence to that, because at news we don't like to just say stuff. We have to actually have facts backing it up. The United States and Israel are the number one and the number two at destabilizing nations.
yes,
The CIA and the Israeli secret intelligence service. So a lot of people don't realize that. Like, let's go into it a little bit, but let's not go with what we was in the show with. We got the videos on. Let's give some alternative sources real quick, so that way it's not just the same players. You know what I mean, Henry? So people know we're not just picking on the same players. It's
yes,
right. So let's go into the most modern one, right? What's going on with Venezuela right now? I know I just seen they just blew up some ships in the Pacific Ocean, and last week they blew up some ships in the Caribbean that was bringing drugs to the United States. And now Donald Trump is talking about that it might be going into, we might have to be going into Venezuela to go destabilize that country because of supposed narco terrorism.
yes,
So and that's a modern one right now. And then there's another, and then the other one that's still in the Middle East region, sorta, Sudan. You know, they destabilized the country of Sudan. The CIA caused a civil war over there, and it only got cleaned up more recently because of Russian involvement in the in on to try to make an agreement for both sides to try to come to terms to reunify the country of Sudan. You know,
yes, yes,
so definitely it's definitely evident in other areas of the country too, not just the Middle East, that the United States has been involved in the destabilization of other countries, causing terrorism and negative impact on the people and the rise of terrorism worldwide.
yes. And America got a disease, and this disease in America is called forgetfulness. Whatever headline news is what people focus on. I've been studying geopolitics for a long time. When a story come out, I follow it and I stay in tune with the story. And years later, that same story gonna show its ugly head, and some people like, oh my goodness, this occurred, but forget that these stories been going on for years. When it comes down to Venezuela, we got to remember that most of the oil that was coming from Venezuela was going to the ports of Texas through the Koch brothers. We all Americans. We know about the Koch brothers. We know about George Soros. We know about these billionaires who hedge funds. And they're buying American politics to do their dirty work. And we also see that foreign government, if we scratch their back, they scratch our back. And in this episode, we got to realize that Al Qaeda, as people said in the past, created by America. It never became a renegade entity, say, forget America. No. It's a freedom fighter 1 minute, and it's a disabler in another minute. In Afghanistan, they was the good guy when it fit America war against Russia. They became the bad guy when the United States wanted military presence in Afghanistan. They became the bad guy in Iraq and Syria, but recently they became good. Even I never would seen a day that an American president would shake their hand of a terrorist kingpin who had a bounty of over $5 million over his head. And we're going to get into that.
Say something about that too, Henry, real quick, right? Because we got to emphasize something. Post 9/11, we definitely wouldn't expect to see something like that. You know what I'm saying? Especially the way that the United States government infiltrated our mind with the propaganda. A lot of people who, those of us who are old enough, graduated from high school with, those people is no longer with us. Rest in peace. You know what I mean? We honor their service, but obviously it was under false pretenses that they lost their life. You know what I'm saying? Fighting these battles that really was setups by greater intelligence for corporate America and the enhancement of individuals' pockets at the detriment of the American people. We got to understand this, and that's what's going on today in these other war sites, conflict zones, Israel with Gaza, you know, Zelensky up there in the Ukraine against Russia, in the India-Pakistan conflicts that we went over here on the show. Now advancing against Qatar. You know what I'm saying? Like, these folks is some warmongers out here. And it's very apparent because let's be honest, a lot of their stock portfolios are mainly built up off of United States military weapons and manufacturing distribution networks throughout the world. And in America, let you try to sell some handguns or something and find out.
Yes. So let's break down the detail real quick.
Qatari officials have been quick to refute claims that Qatari money has been part of the funding of ISIS. However, it's been alleged in some reports that Qatar, along with Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and even EU member state Turkey, have all had funding linked to ISIS. But why are reporters and journalists making these links? According to some, the funding of militant groups has been the go-to plan for both the West and the Middle East in the struggle to control the flow of oil and natural gas from the Gulf states. It is this funding that may have found its way into the hands of ISIS. Back in 2009, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad reportedly refused to sign a deal with Qatar that would have run a natural gas pipeline from Qatar's North Field through Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria and then Turkey to supply Europe. This would bypass Russia, Assad's most powerful ally and currently the top supplier of natural gas to Europe. The theory continues like this. Instead, to protect Russian interests, Assad signed a deal with Iran from its South Pars field that shares a border with Qatar's North Field. This was seen as a direct affront to Qatar, and that's why some reports have suggested that Qatar had a vested interest to get Assad out of power and replaced with a friendlier regime. They, along with several other states, began financing militant groups opposed to President Assad. As the Islamic State began to gain more power, many members of the various militant groups operating began to defect, often simply to be on the winning side.
When the war took off, it was all in the news that when America was leaving Iraq, Iran was becoming the dominant political power inside of the country. And it wanted to supply gas. Yes, Iraq have oil and some gas fields, but they cannot refine it at that time the way to reach the markets. Iran wanted to build pipelines and ship it through Syria and from Syria into Libya, into Europe. And Russia was also planning on building a pipeline also to connect with that. But it went against United States interests, and we had the Arab Spring. With the Arab Spring, a lot of American demands and Israel demand got met. We had Egypt, the leader got toppled, and another general in place. Qatar did not go through the Arab Spring because their leaders was big, strong American supporters. America motto is democracy, democracy. But most of the people that America put in place wind up becoming kings or dictators. And most of the country, when it comes down to the people suffer while a very few become richer. Same thing that occurred. I'm going to give an example. Argentina. We bailing out Argentina right now because a hedge fund guy went in there and bought a lot of bonds. Now the country going down because of the corrupt leader. Now America trying to prop them up by selling out American farmers. The same thing they trying to do to Venezuela.
We got to get into that, Henry. We got to get into that because we have to give them an understanding with that, right? Now, you just said the complete situation, right? But we have to go into the banking part of it for more in-depth comprehension. You just said that a major hedge fund person, buyer, holder, stockholder, which means that he went to Argentina with all them U.S. bonds. right?
Yeah.
So understanding is the U.S. bonds are what back up the United States cash, the dollar. The bonds are what give the United States dollar the value. So if he had a certain percentage of the bonds with him, they're really trying to basically he bought the insurance policy because the United States government can't afford for him to go down and some narco terrorists or etc., maybe even some allies of Russia or China get these bonds, get their hands on these certified bonds, because those bonds are worth a lot of value because it backs up American currency, especially in the hands of anybody that's in the BRIC nation right now, because they want to take the American money down in value. So if they destroy those bonds, that's what's backing up the dollar bill. So the dollar bill is going to lose a lot of value almost instantly in the stock market. That's why the government
And
is
in this case, we looking at a rich friend of Donald Trump and Democrats, the American system. This hedge fund manager in buying all of Argentina bonds. He was buying the debt. He was buying the debts of the country, thinking, hey, I buy these debts because this is American-backed dictator with American forces. We could get money out of this country. But actually, it ended up getting money from the United States because this leader that the United States put in place in Argentina wind up stealing the money, destroyed the currency, destroyed the economic. So now what happened is America signed a deal to buy Argentina beef. Now farmers here in America gotta suffer while these rich hedge fund babies get richer. The few get richer while America middle class suffers. And this would occur also in the Middle East. You have these people banking out of control from chaos. From chaos come order. In America, they come with death. And we see here that from 10 years, that second video we showed was reported on 10 years ago, making sure people see the coverage from the beginning of the war in Syria. They got rid of the ex-president Assad to put a leader of Al-Qaeda. Just because he changed the name of the organization to the front, America still had a bounty over his head till recently. This was an Al-Qaeda leader, not just a leader, he was one of the founding members of Al-Qaeda in Syria. There was no Al-Qaeda in Syria till after the Iraq War, until it started talking about creating pipelines. And Qatar was one of the biggest money backer. And we hear, or we heard, that Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, but we don't hear about America. America's hand was in these destruction from the get-go.
And you know, the thing is too, Henry, that the one who they put in power, which I don't think it's a coincidence, he looks like he could be Zelensky's brother.
Yeah.
And we know that in Ukraine, it's the same issues. Russia wanted to put a pipeline going into Europe, a pipeline from Russia to Germany, and the only one that was able to stand in the way was the Ukraine. Because you notice that it's always when the pipeline is not American interest that we're getting into these conflicts to prevent them from building these pipelines. We're paying these countries to cause disruptions. You know, we're paying these leaders to maintain American interests in the region, to disrupt the economic flow of the so-called enemies of the United States of America, which, I mean, I ain't never seen no Russians really come straight for no American people. I seen a lot of stuff from Vladimir Putin, a lot of his interviews and stuff, and he always says he don't got no problem with the American people. It's always with the leaders. So, and then it's very noticeable in these countries like Qatar, Turkey, Jordan, Iran. It's always against our leaders. It's never the American people. It's always our leaders bringing us into stuff, and really that we don't got no business being involved in if you're going from a logical standpoint. Obviously, from a strategic, military, economic standpoint, they got their reasoning. But we got to also remember, as the American people, we're not making dividends off of these conflicts. We're not making the same money that these corporate CEOs, XOs, treasurers, and so on is making off of these power plays. The American people, we can't even get them to pay for the food stamp. We can't even get them to pay for the food stamp. You got to understand, you got to comprehend the gravity of the balance of the situation. It's not even a balance, it's an imbalance, because they need our support as the people to do these conflicts and interventions and then have these resolutions. They need the backing of the United States people, because we're the ones who put people in Congress. So we're the ones who are responsible for overseeing the policies that they're gonna enact, and the individuals how they're gonna vote based on these things. Because remember, at the end of the day, Congress is the last say whether or not we do these conflicts in these regions, whether or not we're going to spend these billions and sometimes a couple $1 trillion fighting a 25-year war out of nowhere, only for the same terrorists, quote unquote, to take over the country of Afghanistan. It's just we got to pay more attention. And then they want to tell us in November and December they can't afford to pay the food stamp. They can't afford to make sure Americans got food on Thanksgiving and the holidays. They can't even make sure that people have affordable housing in America. They can't even make sure people can earn a wage to afford things in America, but yet they want to throw our tax money away in these conflicts that have no end, which we noticed they got no end. Remember, they were saying that in the other video we brought out on the other show, these endless wars, and there's no profitability to the American people. It's only bringing the demise of people we love because they're going to the front lines to fight these battles that have no, basically, like I said, no profitability. We're not making money off this. Not the people. Yeah, the billionaires, Soros, BlackRock, all these various organizations, Viacom, multimedia corporations, Koch brothers and Rupert Murdoch, and all these people who on the legacy media, they're always flashing these people's checkbooks and their names all over everything. And then they want to make sure, though, as the American people, we go hungry and we go broke. But they still want to send our children over there to perish. It doesn't make sense to me.
Facts. In the process, when the Syrian war was taking place, I realized two things. Al Qaeda, ISIS, while in Syria, did not attack Israel. Israel would open their door. They never opened their door for the Palestinians. They never opened their door for no one, but they opened the door for the rebels, the so-called freedom fighters of Syria. They opened the door for the hospitals to treat the wounded. They was helping these terrorist organizations, but they would call them rebels for freedom fighters because to feed it to the American people, they was feeding that the government of Syria opened fire on civilians. The same thing that occurred in Ukraine. When they had a coup d'etat against the former president of Ukraine who ran to Russia, it was supposed to be some military soldiers open fire on the protesters, and it was a protest, more and more protests, which made the president run. To find out it was a coup. America put Zelensky in place, and he is a dictator because he has power that he puts what we call martial law in place, where he cannot leave power because of the war. He will be president for years and years to come.
As long as you gotta make sure you detail that correctly, though, Henry. As long as he maintains Israeli and American interests that in the treaty that he signed in order to attain the power, right? Because if we don't emphasize that, then people is not going to realize, because then they're going to try to do it again 3 years from now when Donald Trump gets up out of the seat and the new president comes in. Now that new president might go in there and overthrow him. Try to use it as a ploy. Because let's be honest, Henry, we were talking about that earlier today in the back chat. Israel right now is trying to acquire the West Bank and Golan Heights, right?
But
So,
we ain't gonna get into that yet.
but I'm saying, hey, no, we're not
Yeah.
getting deep into that. We're just making that's a bullet point to realization, right, of what I'm saying. How the next president could come up in there and then switch the game up on them because they want to acquire the Golan Heights, right? The Golan Heights. So we have to have these type of things already in the forefront of our minds, because it goes to what you said about how we're playing video of Trump and the United States media 10 years ago, and it's 100% contradictory to what's going on today.
Yeah. So talking about Israel, let's get into a little bit about Israel.
The Israeli airstrikes in Doha, Qatar were captured by security cameras. One explosion at the back of the targeted building, followed by another in the front. Cell phone video shows people running in the normally quiet and peaceful Qatari capital. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said the targets were Hamas leaders who have an office in Qatar.
At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike on the terrorist chiefs of Hamas. These are the same terrorist chiefs who planned, launched, and celebrated the horrific massacres of October 7th.
He says he gave the green light for the strike after Hamas claimed responsibility for Monday's mass shooting, where gunmen opened fire on commuters at a Jerusalem bus stop, killing 6 Israelis. But the White House tonight had rare criticism of Israel and its decision to hit Hamas in Qatar, neutral ground where negotiations among enemies take place. The Hamas office was opened in Qatar over a decade ago in a deal with Washington's support to facilitate diplomacy.
Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal.
The switching of words. It was against.
Hold on, Henry. Before we get into that, let's get into the main thing that's the most important here about what happened, right? This is a direct and disrespectful violation of the Geneva Convention and the sovereignty of nations. Because how do you authorize a precision strike in a whole other country when they didn't even authorize you to do the precision strike? You didn't have permission. And then it's basically they're just doing whatever they want to do right at this point.
What Israel's saying, any country in the Middle East it can hit. No matter if they got American base, they slapped America in the face and say, we control you, America. Because Qatar supposed to be neutral ground where Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, Hamas all go to negotiate with America. You have the Taliban, when they took back control of Afghanistan, that's where they signed diplomats too. It made these organizations, it'll make you think like these organizations will not go there. Or it's something Hamas leader wasn't agreeing with, and some people might have to think that Qatar secretly authorized it, because how did the Israeli know where these leaders were? It is easy to know where they are because to fly a plane from Qatar to, I say, Gaza, Israel know what plane going in and what going out. It during the war, I won't say war, the so-called genocide of the people of Gaza, Hamas leaders, 1 minute they are in Qatar, and then they made it back to Israel to go through the tunnel. They made it through Egypt to go through the tunnel into the Gaza Heights. But we hear from news sources that the Egyptians and the Israelis did not like Hamas. The trickery with words of controlling the narrative.
And you have to understand too, Henry, like think about what you just said, right? If Israel knew they was on them planes to get up out of there, they could have took them planes out the sky if they wanted to with the same missiles, right?
Yeah.
So that means that there was a reason why they waited for them to go into Qatar, which I know, or I wouldn't be bringing it up. It's because if they would have killed them in Palestine or in the Palestinian airspace or the Israeli airspace, that would have been a direct violation of the newly signed treaties that they had made in Egypt about 2 or 3 weeks ago. That would have been a violation because it would have been direct action in the Palestinian areas that they had just promised they wouldn't do any more conflict or inflict any more damage on them people. So they waited for these leaders to get to Qatar, because once they got in Qatar, they was outside of the violation of the treaty zone. They was outside of it. So Israel knew that was their time to strike them, but not violate the treaties and cause a resurgence in the violence in the conflict.
You know what's shocking? Just a week or 2 weeks ago, they found a Hamas perpetrator, someone who funds Hamas, who was on video with Hamas. They found him in the state of Louisiana, working in a restaurant. United States, with the technology that it have today, have a Hamas figure here in the States. It made me come with the sum that Hamas itself was created by Israel to call October the 7th. A reason to go in there to create chaos, because news reports kept saying that Israel would drive and give Hamas suitcase of money. Qatar will pay the money, give it to the Israeli, and the Israelis would give it to Hamas.
You know, that sounds reminiscent of when the Russians went into Ukraine and they had infiltrated this base that was the Ukrainian leaders under Zelensky, like high-ranking military officials. And in the dresser, they had it on video, I seen on Instagram, that when they went into the bedroom of the officer, he had the money in US dollars, $100 bills, in the plastic wrap packages and in the drawers. Cash. You know what I'm saying? So it sounds like a similar situation over here. that we're dealing with. And then on top of that, because remember what you're talking about, Henry, with the October 6th, October 7th incident, in the military, they call that a flash pan incident. It means that it's a situation that happens that allows for pre-planned military action. Meaning they needed that as a justification to use military force in those circumstances. A flash pan event. You could look that up. That I'm not just making stuff up. That's a military terminology for people to learn something. And if you ask me, if they found that guy in Louisiana, then you already know what I'm gonna say. It's them 3 letters again. You know what I'm saying? He might not be an agent. You know what I mean, Henry? Because he obviously wouldn't be working in a restaurant in Louisiana. But guess what? He could have easily been a confidential informant.
Yeah.
Confidential secured informant the whole time. Because remember what we said on previous shows. A lot of these groups and a lot of these countries think that they're going against the United States, not knowing that a lot of their top people is United States informants. That's how we be knowing. Oh, how did Israel know that those main leaders was in Qatar? Of course, we had people next to them, their own people next to them, who were selling them out for dollars. Yeah. How do we know that guy who was in the restaurant in Louisiana, that they didn't get him up out of there? Because if they started putting incidents in 1+1 and personnel who was there and people who survived certain attacks, etc., XYZ together, they wasn't going to realize that he was the common denominator.
Yeah. So let's play the next clip.
I'm starting because you're in my country, so I want to welcome you, Mr. President. And as soon as I found out that he's coming to refuel, I said, I'm not going to allow him to take off unless I come and say hello to him. So thank you very much, Mr. President. It's always good seeing you.
Well, the Emir is one of the great rulers of the world, not just the Middle East. He's loved, he's beloved and respected by his country. I don't know what's more important, being beloved or respected.
Both.
You have a preference? Because you have both. You're one of the few. And the Prime Minister has been my friend and a friend to the world. And we've done a lot together in the last, especially in the last year. What we've done is incredible. Peace to the Middle East. And they were a very big factor in it. So I just want to thank you. I was thinking, we're landing here. We're going to fuel up. And it's such an honor to have you on the plane. You don't do this often.
Never. First time.
I don't think he's ever done this, actually. But it's an honor. We have a great ally. He's a great ally. They are a great ally, and these are 2 great men. And as long as we're together and you have those cameras rolling, I want to just say we express our thanks. And you have a safe Middle East right now. And you're going to keep it that way for a long time. For a very long time. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. It's a great honor to have them on the plane.
No other leader. Not British Prime Minister, no other leader from another country, a foreign country, got to sit on Air Force One. Qatar did 10 years ago. Like I showed the video, I'm going to show pieces of it again for the people who missed.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. And in the wake of that conference, nations came together and spoke to me about confronting Qatar over its behavior. So we had a decision to make. Do we take the easy road, or do we finally take a hard but necessary action? We have to stop the funding of terrorism. I decided.
Like I said before, I had to play it again. He said, we have to stop the funding of terrorists. And Qatar is one of the biggest sponsors. But now, 10 years after the fact, you have Qatar giving Donald Trump an airplane for another Air Force One, gave Donald Trump billions of dollars to help the U.S. economy. And let's not forget, they building an air base to train Qatar Air Force here in United States in Idaho.
And let's not forget something else too, Henry, that we reported about that on a previous show, that we got the Air Force One because Trump brokered that deal for them drones and those AI missiles that we was giving to Qatar.
We have Donald Trump 10 years ago. We showed a reporter. That's the good thing about video. You can say one thing and say, "Oh no, we don't believe you," but we got video of Donald Trump saying, "Qatar, we didn't break off our friendship with them. No, we started getting more money from them. We was using them to supply weapons and money to these so-called terrorist organizations."
Oh, and let's not forget what you just said too. The most important thing, more than the money, more than the equipment, they were securing training for these folks.
Yes. They were training them in areas of Jordan. United States military was in Jordan training rebel groups. And to not have a paper trail, because, you know, we got freedom of information where we could pull up information and see what the United States is doing. No, they was getting the money, infinite money from Qatar. People got to understand. Most of these governments that's propped up in the Middle East is supported by Great Britain central bank system. If you have a Federal Reserve, you is supported by Great Britain and that money. And Qatar was a protectorate under the British. Most
and
of these leaders.
It's easier to control the individuals than it is to have to convince their people.
Yeah. Let's add some more to content.
The two men talked with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and Turkey's president also dialed in to this meeting. And the focus of the meeting for the Syrians as well as President Trump were sanctions. Now, Syria has been sanctioned by the United States all the way back to 1979.
You see that guy? The guy sitting there with Donald Trump, our president here in the U.S. That man had a bounty over his head, more than $5 million. He was the leader and the founder of a terrorist outfit.
And let's not forget, at one point, he was number one on the most wanted list off the CIA. Number one.
Let's show a video clip, go into more detail about this guy.
Ahmad al-Shara, formerly Al-Qaeda leader Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, became the first Syrian president in nearly 6 decades to address the UN General Assembly following Bashar al-Assad's ouster. In December 2024, born in Riyadh in 1982, he joined jihadist movement early, led the Al-Nusra Front during Syria's civil war, and was once designated a terrorist by the US. In 2016, he broke away from Al-Qaeda, rebranding his group as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and himself as Ahmad al-Shara. Meeting world leaders including US President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he sought sanctions relief under the Caesar Act and emphasized Syria's return to the international community, marking a historic shift in the country's leadership.
One minute, a terrorist fighter for some, a freedom fighter to some. But we can't have amnesia. We cannot let the past go. For the people who study history, know it's a reason why. So we won't repeat the same mistakes, or we'll understand the true contents of the matter at hand. Some people show sympathy for one group of people without realizing the full content of the issue at hand. You will look at 9/11 and say it was a tragedy. Not for America as a whole, but for the people who died in the trade tower and the soldiers who lost their lives, or their family and their life was never the same after the war. That was caused by people in these high up positions. We just told you earlier that Qatar, Saudi, and Turk in America supported an Al-Qaeda leader after people said years ago that America created Al-Qaeda. Let's not forget that. America created Al-Qaeda and used Saudi Arabia as the funder of these organizations. It's the same, but it's the truth.
You know what's hold on, let me say this, because you know what's the funniest part about that? You saying that? Because if the United States and Great Britain is in control of the monetary funding system, right?
Yeah.
How are these people even able to get their hands on large amounts of currency like that when in the United States they trying to hit you off for tax paperwork for transferring $300? So let alone 300,000, 3 million, 30 million. How are they transferring these monies around in the currency, and the people in the United States government, the people over there in the financial institutes in Great Britain, that it doesn't make sense. They have to know this money's moving around. They have to know how it's moving around, where it's moving around, when it was moving around, who got it, who gave it to them. These are simple things. And it's funny because let's think about it like this, right? Henry, if that was me and you doing that, right, over some, let's just say we was moving some bricks or something of that nature, right? Or we was human trafficking or something like that, right?
Yeah.
They catch us in the wire transfers and the money handoffs and all type of stuff like that off rip, bro. You know what I'm saying? There's no way we can't even get a 10,000. You try to walk around the streets of America with 10,000 in cash on you. Let the police or somebody like that spot you with some type of money like that. They gonna need to know all the paperwork. They gonna need to know where the money came from, how you earned it, what bank you withdrawed it from, what day did you take it out at, etc., so on and so forth, or you going to jail.
Yeah.
But these terrorist groups and these foreign entities is able to move around millions of dollars of currency seamlessly and without interference. It's just peculiar to me. You know what I'm saying? It's something you gotta pay attention to.
So before we move on, I want everybody who's gonna watch this show or gonna tune in later on, please like and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, get full notification, and every time we hit a live or post something, you be the first to see. Thank you for your support. We reached over 1,000. The channel hit a milestone. This is the first show after we hit 1,000, and I appreciate everybody who showed up and showed out. We growing. Without you, the people, we would never be here today. This is why news is here. Never in the work and service. News. So it's not just Syria that have a problem. And just like we said earlier, that the West Bank, Hamas, I believe, is an organization to bring chaos to the people in Gaza. Because you had the Palestinian Liberation Army, that's the government that's in place, the PLA, to divide the territory, to divide and conquer. They created Hamas. And Hamas was getting money, funding. And that money did not go to create a better life for the people. It was created to create a war zone, to survive a war. And that war was not to affect the organization, but to affect the people as a whole. But before we get more into detail, let me salute all the people who went through Katrina. This is the 20-year anniversary of Katrina when it hit New Orleans. It hit New Orleans in August. But I'm not here to say, hey, I'm not here to have a big party over the situation, but just for us to remember the tragedy that occurred. Because just like people was going out there, so-called conspiracy theories said that they blew up the levee. People who lived through that said they blew up the levee in the Ninth Ward. So even at home, United States government or rich corporation, enemy domain will create situation. But New Orleans, I'm proud of the heritage that y'all share because y'all still passing it on to the next generation. So let's see a little bit of that.
West Bank, you're working for the bank, you big the West Bank. Not the bank, you bossy West Bank. Not the bank, you do me West Bank. Not the bank, you're working for the Noga, you big the Noga, bossy for the Noga. Not the Noga, the Noga. Not the Noga, get you what the Noga. Not the Noga, West Bank, you're working for the bank, you big the West Bank. Not the bank, you bossy West Bank. Not the bank, you do me West Bank. Not the bank.
Just a little salute from the channel to show our love for the people of New Orleans and their proud heritage. We have not forget about y'all. We here to salute and hope y'all have a wonderful life because every state in America, it is the people that give the love, the livelihood. And we here to reach every state from New York to California, from California to Louisiana, and Louisiana to Rhode Island, from Rhode Island to Michigan to Florida. Up, down, left, right, all around, even Hawaii and Alaska. We love you. The American people, we love you. We here for you. We not just gonna drop news just for our local area and say your area is not in our sight. No, we love you. And whatever type of story that come on our desk, we gonna drop it because we all need to know what's going on around us. So a few weeks ago, after a peace agreement, a ceasefire, I'm going to say a ceasefire, was arranged with America backing, people got to understand, America, Israel ally. So they're going to take Israel's side all the time. That don't make a good referee. If me and you playing basketball and you getting your own referee who support your team, a big fan of your team, that referee will not be neutral. He gonna dictate for you to surrender your interests to fit his friend. So United States is number one friends with Israel. So things that happen to the Palestinians, America is not an ally to the Palestinians, and they do not want no Palestinian state in place. So they're going to lie to us as Israel over and over grab territory. Let's see.
קובע כי ההצעה התקבלה. חברות וחברי הכנסת, הכנסת קיבלה, אני מבקש עוד רגע, הכנסת קיבלה בשעה טובה כעת הצהרה היסטורית התומכת בהחלת ריבונות ישראלית על חבלי המולדת יהודה ושומרון. זוהי זכות גדולה להיות יושב ראש הכנסת שאומרת בקול ברור וברוב מוצק, זו ארצנו.
They did that when United States Vice President was landing into Israel. That's a slap in America's face. For us, the people, if we see and pay attention, that's a slap to American people. But who would say that America did not know if this was occurring beforehand, but acting like they did not know. Israel slowly and slowly taking over Palestinian territory. It's been planned. And this is what the vice president had to say. Let's show what the vice president and what the president say, and we're going to go deeper.
That was weird. I was sort of confused by that. Now, I actually asked somebody about it, and they told me that it was a symbolic vote, some symbolic vote to recognize or a symbolic vote to annex the West Bank. I mean, what I would say to that is when I asked about it, somebody told me that it was a political stunt, that it had no practical significance. It was purely symbolic. I mean, look, if it was a political stunt, it was a very stupid political stunt, and I personally take some insult to it. The West Bank is not going to be annexed by Israel. The policy of the Trump administration is that the West Bank will not be annexed by Israel. That will continue to be our policy. And if people want to take symbolic votes, they can do that. But we certainly weren't happy about it. Thank you. Thank you.
Here go what Donald Trump had to say.
I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen.
Did you speak with Netanyahu about this directly?
Yeah, but I'm not going to allow it. Whether I spoke to him or not, I did. But I'm not allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. There's been enough. It's time to stop now.
You know what's funny, Henry? It said that the vice president landed in the Ben Gurion airport, right?
Yes.
You got the airport where the Yemen put that ballistic missile and blew up a bush.
Yeah.
It's the same airport. So you mean to tell me, hold on, Curtis, this is getting too good now. Because it's linking other stuff that's not even linked up in this show to other shows. How is it the vice president feels it was secured to land in the airport that Yemen could hit at any moment with an ICBM? You see that? You see how that's contradictory? That's very contradictory, Henry. I just wanted to point that out because it seems like what you're saying is very credible, Henry. You know, like it's just a plot, bro. It's a scheme, man. They're hustling us. They're hustling the American people.
Yes. Hamas, Al Qaeda, ISIS, these organizations is all created by the CIA. It's to get money and to control the American people for a reason to go to war. It's scary because they plan these events years beforehand. And then they show us in our face. Let me pop something else on the screen. Okay.
And let's not forget while we're waiting too, Henry, that Yemen was backing up Hamas.
Yes.
And there's Joseph.
Can you hear it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's play it from the beginning again.
Here is a master plan Jared's been working on for 2 years. So Jared Kushner and there's Joseph. And Witkoff, which is Trump's special envoy to get this Gaza thing fixed, not doing a great job. So Kushner's he reveals yesterday that they plan to rebuild Gaza before it was destroyed. They already had this plan, and this isn't a peace deal; it's a seizure of Palestine. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared. You want to hear it? Here it is.
We're working with a group of people who have been working on master plans for the last 2 years.
So there are plans already.
We have plans already. We have a master plan already. And
for the last 2 years. So before they destroyed Gaza, they had a master plan. That would be called premeditated murder, I'm pretty sure. But again, the chosen ones are not subject to the regular laws of the universe. So let's listen to more.
And Jared's been pushing this, and we're working together.
So they've been pushing this. They had a master plan 2 years ago. 2 years ago is when the war started, before anybody knew what was going to happen. Apparently, they did know what was going to happen because they had a master plan. And the plan was to flatten Gaza, annex the West Bank, and then build the Trump Riviera. Let's listen to what... First of all, why does this guy always look shiny and wet? Kushner, doesn't he? Is he guilty about something? Let's listen.
He looks like the son-in-law in Succession.
Yes.
You seen that show?
I haven't, but here we go.
On master plans for the last 2 years.
Look at his face. Did you see his face when he said it? Watch his face.
On master plans for the last 2 years.
Like, you're not supposed to say that. You said the quiet part out loud, dummy. You're not supposed to say that. Let's watch it again.
On master plans for the last 2 years.
Huh? Zoinks. So that's Trump's son-in-law talking about building waterfront property in Gaza. They've been planning this for a long time. Jared has been publicly talking about this master plan way before. So let's listen to him do this.
In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable to if people would focus on kind of building up livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there. But I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up. But I don't think that Israel has stated that they don't want the people to move back there afterward. The thing that I would try to do if I was Israel right now is I would just bulldoze something in the Negev. I would try to move people in there. I know that won't be the popular thing to do, but I think that that's a better option to do so that you can go in and finish the job.
Okay, so does he think that money? So he's talking about the money that they used to build tunnels. Does he think that money was supposed to go?
Pause it here. What I said earlier, Israel drove suitcases stuffed with cash into Gaza to keep Hamas in power. That's what I wanted to get to on that video.
Yeah, but that was very informative too, because remember who put Kushner in power? Donald Trump in his first term,
Yeah.
So that now listen, I've been doing my business project manager certificate program, and that would be called what they're telling us, and based on the timeline of what we're seeing, they unfolded a 10-year plan of execution in order to start this new plan that it's called in project managing, that's called a dependency, where that them being able to build all that economic zone, that's what I'm gonna call it, because I'm not trying to get too deep into what he was saying they were trying to build and all that. I don't care about that part. He's talking about this economic zone that they were trying to develop. Now it has a dependency, which means that if the first 10-year plan that Trump initiated when he put Kushner in power, didn't go through the way that they planned it, they wouldn't be able to go through with the economic zone part of the plan. So that would also support why they would be driving suitcases full of cash to keep Hamas in business. Because remember, you gotta know something about project managing, right? The most important thing is that you follow the timeline. You don't want to get stuff done early or under budget, just like you don't want to get stuff done late or over budget. You want it done exactly to the plan. So if Israel was going to defeat Hamas in, say, 2 years, but the original plan was that they needed them to defeat Hamas in 4 years, we would still be watching the war right now. So the ceasefire and the treaty, the peace treaty, whatever, peace agreement, this is all part of the execution phase of the project plan. So it was important that they get these timetables 100% on point. Because remember, the money goes where the time is at. They tell us that all the time, right? They tell us time is money, right? So you have to understand, if we do it in less time under budget, next time they're not going to give us more money. Next time they're not going to give us more time. If we do it late, if we finish the project late or over budget, next time they're not going to let us do the project at all because nobody wants to lose money. You know, if they can't get them people out of there and start the construction of this economic zone in the next year, we might as well say that it might be up in the air after that, because if Trump gets out of office before they start building that economic zone, who knows what the next administration is going to be aligned with and willing to work with. Because remember, think about it. Trump is doing something that's highly illegal with that economic zone, right? What was the building that they said they're building?
A Riviera.
A Trump Riviera. When you're the United States president, you are not allowed to be involved in private investment or economic development as the president, because that's a breach of trust, conflict of interest. See how that works? That's a conflict of interest because the president of the United States has a private stake as a stakeholder, meaning somebody who is responsible for the project execution, as well as being the sponsor, meaning the person who funds the projects, in order to get the profit at the end of the project and its success. And that is not allowed. That is against the rules of being the president of the United States. Remember, everybody, we're all witnesses to this. Let's go to the first Trump term. That proves that what I'm saying is a fact and true. Trump had to step down as the CEO of Trump Inc. and put Donald Trump Jr. there while he went into the presidency the first time. He wasn't allowed to do business or conduct any type of economic development for his personal interests. But now all of a sudden here, because he doesn't have a second term on the line in the second term, he can't be the president again. Now he doesn't care if he's violating the rules of being the president because there's no consequence.
Yes. Let's dig a little more into this. Let me share the screen.
Towards building up Gaza beachfront property? Because Israel drove suitcases stuffed with cash into Gaza to keep Hamas in power. So we all know that they're the ones who funded Hamas. Did they really think they were going to use that to build beachfront property? What did they think they were going to use that money for? Okay, so that's that. So I think the world should tell Israel, go fund yourself. But that's how I feel. Well, what do you make of this? Does that seem like an admission that they've been planning this all along? Because they have.
Of course they expose as a whistleblower that the U.S. was going to target and destabilize and try to commit regime change in, because they didn't bend to the knee of the U.S. They don't have central banks owned by the British, so on and so forth. And I think that Jared Kushner should take his own advice. I think the U.S. should, instead of funding 800 military bases and waging all these wars across the world, I think that a lot more cities could look a lot nicer if the U.S. reinvested in building up better beachfront property rather than allowing homeless to lay all over the streets and crime to go up in all these cities. I think we need to focus on our issues.
Boy, that's you sound very right wing. I don't know. You want to invest in the United States? That sounds crazy. We're supposed to send money to Ukraine. We're supposed to send money to Taiwan. We're supposed to send money to Israel, and then we're supposed to invade Venezuela. So I don't know what you're talking about. That seems crazy.
Borderline anti-Semitic, what I just said.
That's very anti-Semitic. So.
See, hey, and while we're at it, hold on, Henry. And while we're at it, make sure they fund the food stamps. You know what I'm saying? For the children, you know what I'm saying? I'm not really too much trying to do it for myself, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of children out here in the United States of America who rely on them food stamps to be able to eat when they come home from school, have snacks, and be able to have lunch at school and breakfast when they get up in the morning. So, you know what I mean? So we got to be paying attention to where the money's going and exercise our power. We're the people. So we're supposed to be telling them where to spend the money at, not them telling us where they're going to spend our money at.
Facts. We paying taxes, and the money that we pay, they use to start wars, to take leaders who do not bend to the interests of the few. Going into Venezuela, attacking several Islamic countries. The wars is enough. Enough is enough.
Don't forget don't forget Eastern Europe.
Yes. We had the Ukraine conflict. We have a conflict with Taiwan and China. Aircraft carriers patrolling the South China Sea. We are complacent. We, as American people, we gotta realize in history around the world, we will be known of helpers of genocide. We are, but me and Shinakma, JML, they don't like us. They call us anti-Semitic when we can't be anti-Semitic. They call us a name that we cannot be because we speak the truth, not because we aim it at a particular ethnic group, a particular race, a particular nation. We splitting the truth of what's going on between United States, Israel, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and many other countries that fall under the umbrella. Let me show what I
And
mean by this.
make sure that people understand too, Henry. We here at the news, we're just showing you the data. We're not even giving you our personal opinions on the information we're bringing out. We're just giving you the general information. We're not telling you, oh, if me or Henry's personal views on these topics, on these truths. We're telling you unbiased, pure, unadulterated information.
When ISIS came to be, only, I could say, 2 countries had the right to airstrike on Syria. That was Saudi Arabia and the United States. Everybody else was part of the coalition. Support with money, finance behind the scene. You have all the NATO countries. You have the squash nations, including South Korea, Japan. All these nations was going against ISIS, but they all knew the truth. They all knew that ISIS, was created by the CIA.
Yes, sir. Let's remember, what did I say? Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. ISIS. It was made known on public TV in 1982. Henry still didn't load that video up, but that video is really a linchpin to the whole situation. When you see it was on the news that they was talking about it, 1982.
Yeah.
So let's say what's going on right now. We're looking at a 50-year plan right now at the end of the execution. Because if they was moving back in 82 with ISIS, and here we are in 25 talking about ISIS still. Come on, bro. I wasn't even alive in 82, bro.
Okay.
That's how real that is, Henry.
We got to also remember that United States destroyed the prime minister of Iran.
Right.
With the British secret intelligence, because he planned on nationalizing the oil in Iran. They took him out and put the Shah. That's a king, dictator. Him and his family rich to the point that the family is here in America and rich. They still living off of some of that old money. And there's still people who pushing for the Shah to go and take over Iran. The people of Iran had a revolution. In that revolution, they picked an Ayatollah. Not saying that the government is perfect, but we gotta realize you dealing with a country that was under American sanction for so long. Even in that conflict, United States was selling weapons to Iran, then selling weapons to Iraq to fight Iran. It's a big playing game. Both sides is playing a game, and at the end of the game, they still shaking hands and eating lunch with each other because they all
Henry,
in it together.
Hold on. Before you wrap that up right there, right? Now you only went from the Shah. You know, who was in power after that, though? That had tension with the United States of America, including President Obama. That was in the leadership in Iran. He just stepped down during Joe Biden era. Ahmadinejad.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? How it's a game, they're playing this little tit for tat game. Ahmadinejad stepped down. Now they got this new government in there. They just bombed them up, right? We did a show on that. They just bombed them folks up. You know? And now they talking about re-putting the Shah back when they was the ones who took him down and put Ahmadinejad. You know what I'm saying? It's not making sense. It's talking about musical tyrants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We moving one tyrant out to put another one in. We don't like how Ahmadinejad was running it. So now Ahmadinejad, we got because remember, that was one of the points of the Arab Spring too, right? To try to destabilize Iran through the populists.
Yes, to
You know?
the fall of Syria, the fall of Iran, the fall of Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, Sudan. That's where we got South Sudan, and many other, in Yemen, to destabilize them countries and to put strong men in place that will bend to the haste of the United States. If you don't bend to the power of the United States and the central banking system of the Great Britain, we got trouble. And it's a shame, but this is the type of world we are living in.
We gotta make sure that we're understanding this too, because a lot of what's going on, right, is just repetitive cycles of stuff that's gone on 10 to 15 years ago that they just recycled it because they know that this on day one, nobody's gonna remember what happened 15 years ago fresh on their mind, to the point where, you know, let's be honest, a lot of people in America is worried about economic freedom. People in America is worried about job security. People in America is worrying about how they're going to pay their rent. People in America is worried about how they're going to substitute and save and try to replace these food stamps that a lot of these low income households and some middle class income households rely upon to be able to save and afford just simple amenities and luxuries that everyday people in America we supposed to be able to just enjoy. It's not easy for us as the American people because they're making it not easy by putting these cycles in place where every 15, 20 years we're going into a new war against somebody. They got to send over all them people to go fight. Then we training the people who we fighting against in the downtime in between cycles. So that way, oh, yep, now they're ready. It's been 5 years since the last war, and we done trained 150,000 of them over there in the, let's just say, the Middle East, right? They just trained 150,000 of them on the Qatar base, right? And in America, in Idaho, they just trained 150,000 soldiers in 5 years. They just trained them on how to use the AI drones and the AI ballistic missiles, etc., long-range missile system, Patriot missile systems, in order to go back over there in the year 2030, the year 2035, put on a front like they're another terrorist group. You know what I'm saying, Henry?
Yes.
In order for us to go back to war in the Middle East, United States, because, you know, everybody knows since the end of World War II, the United States government and its governmental bodies, the corporate America involved in the cahoots, the conspiracy and coercion, realized that high economic profits come from when the United States is engaged in military conflicts around the globe. And they've been trapped in these cycles of creating money, creating profit, while at the expense of the American people and the people who are being exploited through the combat techniques used, like we said in the other show, Henry, in the Pakistan show, for advertisement on the weapon systems and selling these trainings to these other countries that got the money to afford it.
Facts.
This is why they don't like when we get up on here talking about this type of stuff, because they don't want us to be exposing them for how they're using our checkbook against us, but they're not losing money out their checkbook. Because remember, think about it. If we go to war and they got to send them MREs and food supplies and stuff like that, who's that coming from? That's coming out the American people's pocket. That's coming out the American Agricultural Society's pocket, the farmers, you know. But the corporations who's sponsoring it is bringing in record profit, bro.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had to sell 10 million more cans of Chef Boyardee's this year because of the conflict.
Yeah, we got a lot of issues going on. But let me I want to thank everybody for coming on to the. Let me close this. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming on to the show. Appreciate the people in the live chat. Looking at the pictures now. Thank y'all for the hearts, the love, and the care. We see them, and we appreciate y'all. Our top fans who came out today, we got Latoya Johnson, #1 top fan of this show tonight. And we have Saint 12386. Thank you for coming on. Y'all had a live chat bumping. Without y'all tonight, we wouldn't have the live chat. In time, more people will come. We growing. We appreciate you all. I'm gonna end the show on my part saying I hope everybody have a blessed week. Tomorrow is Monday. If you working, make sure y'all have a safe work week. Don't stress yourself out. And come join us next time when we drop in-depth information, because we news never in the working service. So Shin, anything to say to lead us out?
Yeah, you already. Positive vibes brings positive results. Positive results means you're accomplishing your goals. Just because you go through a negative circumstance doesn't mean you can't have a positive outcome. Stay ambitious, stay inspired, stay motivated. You know, it's a lot of rough stuff going on out here in this world. So be the positive impact in the world that you want to see reflected back at yourself. Peace.